Hey, have you ever wondered about the myths and superstitions surrounding solar eclipses?
Yeah, from ancient legends to modern-day beliefs, it's fascinating how these stories have shaped our understanding of this celestial event.
Imagine being an ancient human. You don't have telescopes, you don't understand celestial mechanics, and suddenly, the life-giving sun starts to disappear.
What would you think? What kind of stories would you tell to explain this phenomenon?
It's no surprise that ancient cultures, lacking the tools of modern astronomy, came up with some pretty creative explanations for solar eclipses.
I mean, wouldn't you? Imagine looking up at the sky and seeing the sun being slowly devoured?
It's like something out of a science fiction movie, except for them, it was very real.
Right. And these weren't just stories, they were explanations, attempts to make sense of a seemingly chaotic universe.
And they varied wildly from culture to culture, each reflecting their own unique worldview. Have you heard about the Vietnamese myth regarding solar eclipses?
Yeah, they believed a giant frog was responsible for gobbling up the sun during an eclipse.
Can you imagine that? This enormous amphibian casting its shadow over the earth as it took a bite out of the sun.
And then there are the Norse myths. They blamed wolves for eating the sun, which might explain why wolves are often linked with darkness and danger.
The Chinese had their own take, pointing to a celestial dragon. They believed it took a chomp out of the sun during its lunch break.
And let's not forget the Hindu myth of Rahu, a demon whose severed head chases the sun, occasionally catching it and causing an eclipse.
It's really a story of cosmic revenge.
What's fascinating is how these stories often involve something trying to devour the sun.
It speaks to a primal fear, I think, the idea of something extinguishing the very source of life itself. Hey, have you ever heard about the Native American myths surrounding solar eclipses?
Yeah, they're fascinating. Different tribes had their own unique stories. For example, the Pomo people had a really interesting one. Oh, really? What's the Pomo story about? They believed a bear got into a fight with the sun and took a bite out of it, causing a solar eclipse. That's wild. Did the bear have anything to do with lunar eclipses too? Yes, the same bear also took a bite out of the moon, explaining lunar eclipses. That's such a charming story, and it actually makes a bit of sense astronomically. Exactly. Solar and lunar eclipses often happen within a couple of weeks of each other, so the Pomo story cleverly links these events.
Chapter 5: Angry Sun.
Did you know that not all cultures saw eclipses as simply a case of celestial hunger?
Really? How did they view them?
Some saw them as a sign of divine displeasure. The ancient Greeks, for example, believed that a solar eclipse was a sign of angry gods, a cosmic warning of impending doom.
That's fascinating. I also heard that the Tewa tribe of New Mexico believed the sun, in its anger, would abandon the sky and retreat to its underworld home during an eclipse.
Imagine that, the sun, the source of warmth and light, throwing a cosmic temper tantrum and leaving everyone in darkness.
It's a powerful image, isn't it?
Absolutely. It really underscores how eclipses were often seen as disruptions of the natural order, events to be feared and appeased.
Chapter 5: Quarreling Sun and Moon. Have you ever heard the myth about the sun and the moon quarreling?
Sometimes myths present a more relatable narrative, like the Inuit people of the Arctic. They tell a story about a brother and sister, the sun and the moon, who had a bit of a falling out. Oh, I know that one. The sun goddess, Melina, stormed off after an argument with her brother, the moon god, Anningen, exactly. And when Anningen caught up with her, it caused a solar eclipse. It's like a classic sibling rivalry story, but on a cosmic scale. And then there's the Batamaliba people of Benin and Togo. They used the eclipse as a teaching moment, right? They believed the sun and moon were fighting during an eclipse, and the only way to stop the conflict was for people on Earth to resolve their own disputes. It's a beautiful sentiment, really, a reminder that we're all connected, even to the celestial objects in the sky.
Hey, did you know that even today, people still have superstitions about solar eclipses?
Really? I thought with all our science and technology we'd be over that by now.
You'd be surprised. Superstitions about solar eclipses still persist in many parts of the world.
Like what? Do people still think eclipses are evil omens?
Yes, some believe they are harbingers of death, destruction, and disaster. Pregnant women are often told to stay indoors to protect their unborn child.
That's fascinating. And what about fasting during an eclipse?
In some cultures, people fast because they believe food cooked during an eclipse will be poisonous. It's amazing how ancient beliefs can endure despite scientific evidence. Chapter 7. No scientific basis. You know, as a scientist, I have to say there's no scientific basis for any of these superstitions.
Really? So, all those stories about eclipses causing disasters are just myths? Absolutely. Eclipses are natural phenomena explained by the laws of physics and celestial mechanics. They don't cause earthquakes. So, they don't poison food either? No, and they certainly don't pose a threat to pregnant women. It's fascinating how even with all this knowledge we still feel a sense of wonder when we see an eclipse. Exactly. It's a reminder of the vastness of the universe and our place within it.
Outro, keep looking up.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through the myths and superstitions of solar eclipses.
We've traveled from ancient times to the present day, exploring the many ways that humans have tried to make sense of this celestial event.
Remember, while these stories are fascinating, it's always important to rely on scientific facts.
Stay curious and keep exploring the wonders of our universe.